Writers, agents, and publishers, for the first time since the Gutenberg Press, find themselves lost in a maze of mystery as technology alters the shape of the publishing industry. Searching for Answers is a group of writers throwing pop culture, writing, and publishing into a crucible of clarity, passion, and humor. This group is the Right Pack. Welcome back to Right Pack Radio. This is your host, David Allen Lucas, author of science fiction, crime drama, and usually combining the two and other things. Also president of St. Louis Writers Guild. With me today is
Melanie Kulani, author of science fiction, fantasy, and nonfiction.
Fedora Amos. I write Victorian whodunits and have one coming out in February. It's called Mayhem with Buffalo Bill's Wild West. I'm also president of Greater St. Louis Sisters in Crime.
And no, they're not nuns running around committing crime.
Lee Savage, author of paranormal erotic romance, as well as some straight-up erotic romance, poetry, and under the name Carrie Lee Williams, a couple of children's books.
And today, we will have a few more of our panel joining eventually, but today we're going to talk about the importance of failure.
Now, stop right there, David. I don't like that word, failure.
I don't either, and
I don't
I'm going to
like
change
it at all. And I was a teacher for a long time, and I don't think there's really any such thing as failure unless you believe it's failure. I like to think of it as a learning curve, and I got to admit, some people have a very steep learning curve.
I totally agree with you. The reason I choose the word failure is from a non-writer point of view. Usually, I don't know about you guys, but knowing our society, failure is really looked down upon. Anytime you stumble, and that's really what, as you're talking about learning curve, a stumble is more a correct phrase.
I like that better.
But you get I'm sorry, if I insult anybody, but all the MBA, power suit tie wearing people out there go, "Ha, you failed. You didn't sell any books. Ha, 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 ha. You should have gone into business." Those are types.
We're not in video, but you didn't see the miming going on.
Yeah, I had full body motion going. But anyway, and I don't mean just those people either. That seems to be an aspect of society that they don't understand artists. And thus, they rank when we don't sell. They rank that as a failure, or they rank what we do as kind of low. But it's really interesting, and I'm on a soapbox, and I'm going to step down and get back into this. If you think about society overall, history, our own history, who are the people who make the changes in the world? Who's the ones who make the most influences? If I said Solon, how many people would know who I'm talking about? You would, I know. That's Fedora. Does anybody else know who Solon is?
No.
Solon was a politician who gave Athens its first constitution and started the road to democracy.
That's his sort of semi-name, the lawgiver.
Yes. If I said, no, that one's too easy. Sorry. I have one. I'm trying to think of his name, and I can't. Okay. Let me go ahead and begin the reversal of this. Can anybody name me who the prince was that Machiavelli wrote for? How many of us know Machiavelli?
Yes, I've heard of Machiavelli.
No.
In fact, you don't even need to know his first name, Nikolai.
Okay, well, that I certainly didn't
what I'm saying
remember.
is, the last name's enough. Da Vinci.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shakespeare. Hemingway.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're talking about a lot of artists and writers, most especially.
Yes, I am.
Because we remember them through the centuries. We remember the Marquis de Sade, for example, even though he was really a strange and crazy kind of guy because of a little book that he wrote.
Uh-huh.
But how does this come back to failure?
Okay. How many times did these people write, paint, and if the singers out there, sculptors out there, whatever, how many times did they stumble before they created a masterpiece?
Well, sorry, we just need to mention Picasso. I think
Picasso.
he sold 2 paintings during his lifetime.
Was it Picasso? Oh, and then,
No, I don't
Or
think-
Monet.
that-
That was Monet.
No, was it
wasn't
Monet?
Picasso.
It was one of the greats.
I'm thinking Van Gogh, but
It could be Van Gogh. It could
No.
be.
Van
Soul
Gogh
fitting,
died as
too.
very poor. He was
Yeah,
very
He was
poor.
so it
poor,
could
yes.
be.
And
Some of his
labeled
stuff's
as crazy at the end. And
I remember he was a heavy drinker, but that doesn't really help much narrow down which artist. There was a Doctor Who episode I'm trying to remember
that's
here.
Van Gogh.
That was Van Gogh. Okay.
As soon as you said Doctor Who, I knew exactly what you're talking about. And so that's where I'm going with it is it, if the world perceives failure, it's not failure. We submit to an agent, they reject us, it's not failure. It is a stumbling block, it is a stumble. And I'm trying not to do and guess who joined us? Because that's just really bad timing. But
Hello, I'm your resident failure.
no, you're not.
I failed to get here on time.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go with that. But you were busy pushing your art.
I was, yes.
And how'd it go?
Well, lots of people picked up my book and walked away without it.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
It was all right. Not to get into the dollars and cents of it, but you know, you go hoping to sell out, and I sold out of free stuff.
So you were at an event today, and that's
Yes, I was at the APA Canine Carnival in Tillis Park, selling dog park books and dog art on things. And I got a couple of sales. I'm not going to say that it was a wasted event, but it was cold. It was unusually cold for St. Louis at this time of year.
Yeah, that's
And yeah, so then I shared a table with a friend of mine, so we had fun. It was a fun event.
and I
Cool.
like your dog park book. It's cute.
Thank you.
And
Thank you very
besides, you wrote it mostly for marketing, and like you said, you sold out of free stuff.
much. I did, yes.
Yes.
and you got to think how many of those people may go and buy it later.
You know,
Christmas is coming right around the corner.
I wish it was more than it tends to be. It's that I sell Christmas ornaments. By the way, audience, my name is Jennifer Stolzer, and I'm a children's book author and illustrator. I draw pictures of dogs sometimes. My .com is jenniferstolzer.com.
Yay.
It's easy to find. 2 N's, 1 F.
And she's been highly popular on certain Babylon 5 sites lately for all her pictures.
Sort of. Sort of. I draw lots and lots of pictures. So often of fan-headed middle-aged alien politicians. But, point being, they picked up one of my Christmas ornaments. They said, I bet these sell out. These are really popular this time of year. And, you know, I went, I wish they were more popular. Because the fact was, I've been selling them for 2 years, and I think I've sold 3 total. So it's interesting the crowd you go to. And, you know, we're talking about failure, measuring failure, considering who you're selling to. 3 Christmas ornaments might sound like a failure. You know, you printed up 20 Christmas ornaments and you sold 3, you failure. But I went anticipating to sell none. So I consider that one sale I made, those 3 sales I made, those times I made them, as complete and full successes. Because I got money for those ornaments that otherwise I would not have gotten. So
Here is a little quotation from a very famous writer, J.M. Barrie, who wrote...
failed.
I did fail on that one.
You're bad.
Oh my god! Okay. See, yeah, I can quote lots of Peter Pan. I didn't even put the name with the book. Okay, I'm gonna go hide in
Here's
shame.
his quote. We are all failures. At least the best of us are. The best of us are failures. What do you think you meant by that?
Point blank, and I'm going to actually play a part of a video that I was debating off and on, but I think it's also answered in the video. But I'm going to say this: he failed. It depends. I don't know personally, but a lot of us we fail as we're practicing what we're creating, or as we're learning the art. Some people, some great writers that have existed, have failed at other jobs because it's not cut out for them.
Yeah, the writer of Dilbert, I can't think what his name is either, but apparently he wasn't all that successful in actually, you know, business.
Yeah.
And,
But I'm sure he saw business as the fodder that he then
Oh,
used
yeah.
to turn into
Yes.
a very successful comic strip.
Yes.
Yeah, and if he'd been successful in business,
The author
the cartoon probably wouldn't exist.
Author of Dilbert is Scott Adams.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, what did he fail at, or what are your thoughts?
On failure in general.
No, on what you read.
Oh,
On the quote.
on the quote. At least the best of us are.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think that's because the best of us are going to rise above our failures. Whatever bad things happen to us, we tick them off, we kick them to the corner, we say, who cares? I am going to do this, I'm going to do it my way, I'm going to do it better than I did before. And that's why we're better. Every failure makes us better.
There's a Japanese proverb that goes, I could have a number, I know I've got the number wrong in my head. Fall 6 times, stand up 7. So, exactly. You gotta keep going.
Got to get right back up on that horse.
Exactly.
Also, those who succeed never succeed. It's very rare that you succeed on your first try.
Well, and if you succeed on your first try, sometimes that gives you problems. For instance, I was just looking over this list, but J.K. Rowling, not the first person she sent Harry Potter to publish it. She sent it to a lot of authors, a lot of publishers, rather, before it got published. But the thing is, her first book, her first series did super, super well, which is great for her. She made a ton of money and they're great books. But now she probably wants to write, and she has written other stuff, but everything is measured by Harry Potter. And a book that would be a success by a first-time author is a failure because it sells a measly 50,000 copies.
I was trying to make the point that the effort of trying comes with failure because you try something new and you make mistakes and you don't know what you're doing. So all great successes are failures because all great successes have tried.
Right.
And they continue to try, and that's when they meet success. So that's what I think that quote interprets kind of to me.
I definitely would agree. I know, is it Emerson? Yeah, Emerson. I think it's Emerson. That was asked about how many times why it took him 200 and whatever times to attempts to make the light bulb. And
Thomas Edison.
I know.
And it was 10,000.
Thank you. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I know I'm butchering this. I know I get the wrong names. I need coffee. But anyway.
We need Google access.
Cheers.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
And they just clinked coffee cups.
It's Sunday. It's cold.
I'm not commenting. It's good. What I was going to say, though, is if you're a writer, if you're a painter, singer, sculptor, whatever, photographer, in this crazy world of art that we live in, you're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs have to face falling down and getting back up, falling down and getting right back up. And that's just a part of the lifestyle, part of what we need to do. Success can always be right around that corner. You got to keep walking towards it. I said I was going to play a part of a video. This is coming off of YouTube. It is Walter Mosley, a lesson on great literature given on Big Think. Since it's YouTube, I'm not breaking any copyrights, and guys, I'm giving you exactly where it's coming from. We know get money, so we're good too. At least I think. Let me make sure I turn the volume up.
The biggest misconception that people have about the literary life is the romance of it. That a writer has this large world available to him or her of people, of ideas, of experiences, of interchange of ideas. That they don't understand really not how isolated the life of that person is, because the life of that person is dependent on who they are, but the literary life of that person, how hard it is to get recognized, how hard it is to get people to read your books, how hard it is to get people to even to understand what they're reading when they're talking to you about their books. The idea is, and a lot of people who think about writers actually think about reading. they'll say, they'll think about the great novels. They say, oh, well, you must have read, Albert Camus and Virginia Woolf and Shakespeare, when really, the books that made you become a writer was Tom Swift and the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. That the love of writing comes at a very early age. Like for me, for instance, comic books so affected me. And a lot of people, who come up to me and start talking about writing, when I start talking to them about the Fantastic Four, they look at me aghast. They say, the Fantastic Four, that's not literature. I said, yeah, but it was when I was 11 years old. This was literature. This was telling me what life was about. This is how I kind of entered life through fiction. And I think that that's a big I always tell people, I say, well, if a young girl read Beloved as her first novel, she'd have to kill either herself or her mother, because in Beloved, you have a mother killing their children. This is not something a child would accept very easily, and would never understand. And so Nancy Drew is much more suited for a 8, 9, 10-year-old girl.
I think that ties in exactly with what Jen was saying a little while ago. I think it ties in with a lot of what we've all been saying. So, before I go on with my next question to everybody, I'm going to say, yay, my co-host is here.
Hooray!
Hi.
We're just
Sorry,
kind of a
late,
come
guys.
as you are episode today.
Yes.
Oh my. Hello everyone. Should I introduce myself?
Please.
Alright, my name is Kathleen Kayembe. I write paranormal romance and urban fantasy under the pen name Kiseka and Vita, and I was late because I was writing.
Yeah, cool.
Oh my goodness.
So
what was the point you guys were just making? You said what you were talking about earlier.
it's the way society looks at writing and looks at failure in the arts, and how we really should be looking at it. Because our failures are actually nothing more than stumbles in perfecting, and you can never be perfect, but in improving what we do in our arts.
I think in connection with that, there is no such thing as a wasted anything in a writer's life. Some of my failures have fed into my fiction, and some of my successes have fed into my fiction, and some of my successes have made failures of my writing fiction. So, everything can tie into your writing. Everything you do can feed your writing, and it's good to fail. It's really hard because I'm a perfectionist, but it's good for you. And learning to get back up and try something again is one of the most important things you'll ever learn as a human, not just as a writer.
And you just fed into what I was about to ask. Unless...
No, go ahead.
Okay. How do you guys keep going? When Jen, you were talking about, I'm the whatever when you walked in.
Yeah.
I know you've been submitting to agents, haven't got anything back. What keeps you going?
Yeah.
Fedora, same with you, same with any of us. What keeps you going?
I get up in the morning, I go to the computer because there are people in my head trying to get out.
Well, I was just thinking the importance here is what we're talking about is resiliency.
Exactly.
And, like Dave said earlier, it's getting back up again once you fall. And so, what's the
Resilience is the key word, I think. Octavia Butler has a book called Blood Child and Other Stories. It's a collection of short stories, and it has 2 essays in the back that are on writing. And in Furor Scribendi, I believe, is the one. Persist is the word she says over and over again. It's the most important thing you can do as a writer, because talent will fail you, habit will not. You need to persist, and that will get you far.
Go ahead.
And I want to say that ties in with passion, because without the passion, you're not going to keep going. If you don't really love it, you're going to let it fall to the side.
I want to throw the word hope in as well.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get 1,000 no's, but all it takes is one yes to find an opportunity. And every no you get, that's one more step toward the yes you might get. Now that gets a little wearying, speaking from personal experience, speaking from earlier in the week when I was crying about how unfair it all felt. But if you don't try, you can't win. if you can't fly if you don't jump first, and you might have to jump a lot before you take off. So I'm putting hope in and trying to keep your hopes up. Not like, don't keep your hopes unreasonably high. Like, this is the one that's going to make me $1 bajillion. But hope for a partial request.
And I am so glad you just threw in the money part. Too. Not all of us think about timing of that cough.
I don't know.
Oh.
You're covered.
I'm getting choked by a Darth Vader somewhere. No, seriously. Some people on the outside who have not written before, and I'm sorry, I'm throwing people. I'm not going to throw
Not
names.
written professionally.
Not written professionally. I'm not going to throw names on the bus. I'm going to throw some people I've run into, situations under the bus. I just retired, and now I'm going to start writing, and that's going to make me money while I'm retired. Yeah. I quit my job, and this is going to be a great way to build income. Is start writing. Mm-hmm. They've got two things they're missing. One, this is an art. Like all arts, unless you are a born savant, I
think it's savant. Yeah.
Where you've got this automatic talent that's just been built into you. Which, by the way, if that was the case, you would have been doing it when you were 4, 6, 8.
Not when you finally got into retirement age.
Right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, for the rest of us, poor smos, it is something in which develops over time and through practice and stumbles. Mm-hmm. What Kathleen said a little while ago about all her failures have improved her stuff, have shown back up. I know that's the case for me too, and I've seen that in the case for some great musicians I've known. And I say great meaning I know they're good, they're not nationally known. Artists I've seen. I've got a couple great artist friends. One sitting at the table. So, and I've seen what they can do. Second thing I'm going to say. Sorry, gathering emotions. No, go ahead. You go.
I was going to add on to, I actually had that situation at college, and I had the upcoming book signing in Kirkwood, and I was letting some of the students know, and the professor comes over to me, then why are you in school to become a nurse? Mm-hmm. I'm like, I have to get a job to make money to support my writing. Mm-hmm. They just don't get it. They just automatically think, oh, you got books, they're on Amazon, you should be milking it in.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way, just like Walter Mosley said. The trick is getting people first to be interested in reading them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing they're out there. Go ahead.
I think the people that focus on something need to focus on something other than either success or failure. Let me read something from somebody who was too much focused on success, and that person was Lance Armstrong. And he said,
God, yes.
Pain is temporary, quitting lasts forever. And I like that sentiment, but look at the lengths that he went to be successful, and it wasn't enough to win just once or twice or 5 times. He had to win every single time. And what that made him do was cheat, and perhaps if there's any failure at all, it's cheating at something you value. So the focus for anybody, should be not, I think, on either success or failure, but upon fulfilling what you were meant to do.
And with that, I'm going to go back to what I was going to try to say, and then right over to you. I'm reclaiming my house. Now that I moved my mom into a nursing home where she needs to be, and I just got done well, it's not true. It's not quite true. I've got a lot of work to do.
It's
to
never
the entire
done.
house, nevertheless.
It's never done.
To this room. But I have reclaimed my old bedroom as my office. One of the first things I put up, right above a coffee maker, because I need coffee, is the same sign that got me through school. Hello, emotions, really? Okay, anyway, there was a plaque that I didn't know my step-grandmother had given to my dad, which I stole around 2nd and 3rd grade, and have kept it since, and now it's back up. It says, quote, "Don't worry if you work hard and your and your rewards are few. Remember, the mighty oak was once a nut like you. Sorry. Wow. I don't know why I'm having trouble getting this out today. So anyway, go ahead.
It obviously means a lot to you.
That's passion coming out.
And it really sounds like it would appeal to a second grader.
Well, and do a...
And the rest of us crazy people.
Well, yeah. Point
It's
blank.
hope, what Jen was saying earlier. Like, when you send things out and you try and you look crazy and nobody necessarily believes in you, you have hope, and that's part of what sustains you, that you can become mighty. Like, you're little now, but what you're doing will hopefully pay off.
True story. I was describing to my therapist the process of getting published. And she replied with, "Do you know what the definition of insanity is?" True. Yes, I do. And you know what? It doesn't matter, because this is the way it happens. You have to keep trying and hoping for a different result. Because that's the definition of insanity, is something that you keep trying the same thing and expect a different result.
But I don't think writers do try the same thing. You keep trying to improve the thing.
And
Keep
you
making
send
it
to-
better and better.
And you send it to different people. If you were sending
You
it to
try
the same
something
agent
else.
over and over and over and change nothing, that would be insanity.
Yeah.
But you're sending it to different people, you're editing it as you go, you're making it different, you're tweaking things, you're a writer. Mm-hmm. That's how writers do.
And artists, too. It's the exact same thing that artists have to do. We keep sending postcards and samples and tear sheets out to studios, hoping that they're going to pick you up for one gig or for multiple gigs or whatever. And if they don't pick you up after one round, you make another postcard and you send it to the exact same group of people and hope that they pick you up the second round.
Actually, I'm going to let Kathleen go, then I'm going to do mine. Go ahead.
I was going to bring up something Miss Frizzle said in Magic School Bus. All right,
Great
kids,
literature.
get messy, make mistakes. And as hard as that is for me, because as I said, I'm a perfectionist, when I get messy and make mistakes, it breaks me out of my usual headspace and makes me think differently and see the world differently. I was thinking about in art, like drawing specifically, because I can't paint. I can't. I love everyone and I love paintings, but I can't do them. But when I'm drawing something and I make a line that I didn't mean to make, that's a mistake, there are ways of creating something even more wonderful than what I had originally intended, because that little mistake was there and I worked with it instead of against it. And I think that's an important thing to remember about failure too. When you work with it and you work with yourself and with the reality that is there instead of fighting it, you have the opportunity to grow in so many ways and to make better work than you ever could when you were going on the trajectory you thought was going to be perfect. Things have a way of working out, and to make that happen, you have to go with what's there.
I
Even
don't-
if it sucks.
I don't know if this has anything to do with failure or not. We'll see. But I was just thinking about using voice recognition software, and if you're good at using it, it's 99% accurate, which means an average of 2 to 3 errors a page, at least. And I was reading back through editing something I'd edited a few times before. It's like, oh, I did this with voice recognition software. I could tell by the nature of the mistakes. But ever so often, when I'm using that, it's like it says something, or the software puts down a word, and it's like, that's not what I was trying to say, but that actually sounds better. Maybe I should go that way.
I was going to say, with failure, I'm going to quote Franklin D. Roosevelt, if I can remember exactly. Well, okay, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't remember the exact words. But he was asked if he thought certain baseball players made more money than he did, that was really fair. That's not the exact question, but it's darn close to it. And he said, well, they had a more successful year. Now, when you stop back and think about, like, the batters, the most successful batters we celebrate. Okay? I mean, they do. I love baseball, so I do. But most successful batters are usually batting in the high 300s or mid-range 300s. What is that? It's this. Out of every 10 times they're coming up to bat to swing at that baseball and to get a hit, nevertheless a home run or even a double, triple, whatever, they are successfully hitting that ball 3 to 4 times out of every 10. And
every 10 at bats.
And every 10 at bats.
Pitches. A lot more pitches than that.
Exactly.
3 pitches per unsuccessful at bat.
Yeah, at minimum they're getting 3 pitches per bat. Because
Usually they get a few more because there's a foul.
I said at
Yeah.
minimum. At minimum. So when you really calculate the odds by any other industry, that would be considered a failure. Mm-hmm. And yet, look at that, and that's really the same thing with the arts.
Weathermen.
Oh God!
Oh yeah.
Let me pause you, and then I'm going to run. Then
I
I'm
wasn't
going
going to
through
say
it.
anymore. Everyone
Okay.
knows.
I was going to say the old joke. How do you know if a politician, a lawyer, a weatherman, or a military recruiter is lying to you? Their lips are moving.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to bring up something because David was vulnerable and let himself be out there. My writing desk is the first thing that's going up in the bedroom that is opened up in my house. It's the first thing. I have clothes just in the hallway taking up space that need to be put away. They're not going away first. It's the writing desk. That needs to go up. And back to the reason I was late, which ties into some stuff that's been bothering me for like years, actually. I have carpal tunnel. I've known it was coming for at least 7 years because I've been feeling it. And it's only recently that I started getting treatment for it, so my wrists are back to being, functional. And there are things that I have to do to make sure they stay functional. One of the things my doctor suggested was better wrist guards than the ones that I have for the computer, because they're old and fraying. Like I said, it's been at least 7 years. But today I did morning pages, 3 longhand pages in the morning. Julia Cameron, look her up; she's awesome. And then I was thinking on the page about what I would do for these things, and I was like, I have stuff already that I could use. I won't even have to go to the store. So I went and I cobbled them together, and I started writing on the computer. This is important because the last time I wrote on the computer was for a half hour when I was dog sitting for someone sitting at this table, and my wrists hurt for hours after that. I wrote for an hour and a half. That felt incredible. And it's been on the heels of not writing very much at all for years. So for years, I felt like a failure as a writer because I was not writing, not in the ways that were important to me. I couldn't write fiction very well by hand. So one of the things that carpal tunnel has taught me is that, writing doesn't go away. It doesn't make me a failure as a writer to not be writing. I've been thinking about it the entire time, and when I was finally able to, I did. So I know a writer is someone who writes, but I want everybody to know that even if you're not able to write, whether for family reasons, as David has had in the past, for health reasons like I have had, or for any other reason, it doesn't make you less of a writer. It means you're not actively writing, but that's all. You can still be a writer, and it's never too late to start. It's never too late to start. So I just wanted that out there.
It was good. How's your wrist doing?
They're not hurting. I wrote for an hour and a half. I was so excited. So that was why I was late. Like,
Hey.
I was writing Jinx, and the scene that I was stuck on for like months finally just wrote itself out.
I hope you're going to send that to me. Are you going to send that to me?
I can.
Please do.
I can.
Now, this is a talk between writer and beta reader.
It was a talk between a character and a demon character.
Ooh.
Went great. For me, not for them. They thought it sucked. But yeah.
I'm going to go back to what Jen was talking about, the insanity part, and I'm tying in actually.
No, we never stop talking about insanity.
No, but perhaps all of us at this table are insane. As well as most of you who are listening who are writers.
And none of us is
Fedora.
really insulted by that.
No, we're not.
It's not an insult. Not
No.
this way.
It's actually, I find writing to be a compassion. You talked, Kathleen, about the family stuff I had, briefly. Not to get disgusting, you can look this up on Wikipedia for details. My mom had C. diff for a while. She came home from the skilled nursing facility, that's not a permanent location, in October, and I had to take over what they were doing. C. diff, short version, everybody has the potential of getting it. A lot of older people do. And what it causes is burning diarrhea.
Yeah.
To just give you an idea, when she went in Tuva skilled nursing before the C. diff started. She was 210-ish. By October, she was in the one. Actually, by August, she was in the 150s.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, it's a horrid disease. Many die from it. But for me, if you've had a child, which I have not had, but this is very equivalent, imagine being a newborn, having a newborn, and now make the newborn 150 some odd pounds, and you're having to do everything for them with the sleep pattern that comes with. That was me from October until actually Easter of whatever that year was, and that was 12, I believe, 2012. For that was her first night sleeping all the way through. And I thought during those entire 6 months, this was my life, and there was no way. I was too tired to do. I was surprised I had a full-time job still that I was working, and my job required, and still does, require very detailed work. And I couldn't write. And yeah, but it was still there. The desire was still there.
I have a friend who, MJ King, she's a writer in Maine, and she's got one of the most insanely amazing imaginations I've come across. And she is a writer to the bone. Like, every inch of her, like, her pores ooze writing. Like, I can't even explain. She's that creative and that dedicated to writing. And when a parent of hers died, she had to do all the estate stuff. And she's, like, my age. And that was a lot for her to deal with, because this was years ago, too. And because of all the turmoil that was going on with that, and with her grief, and with everything, all the upheaval in her life, she wasn't really writing for like 6 months, a year, 2 years. And she was really just fearful that, like, she had failed as a writer. She was not a real writer. What if this wasn't what she was meant to do? And slowly, as things calmed down, and as she just kind of let go and accepted, there's not really time right now, but there will be again, the writing came back. And she's writing with a vengeance. It's amazing. But for the time that my wrist started getting really bad, that's kind of the story that I remembered to tell myself. Because it wasn't going to stay that way. I didn't know how long it was going to stay that way. But, you know, the writing doesn't go away. If you're a writer, you're a writer. So no matter how much you feel like a failure, it's always going to be there. You just have to let it come when you can.
I will say I actually, at one point in my life, tried to give up writing. I grew up, my father was a writer, and this was before, you know, self-publishing really came out. And I spent my whole life watching him get rejected, and he would go into these deep spells of depression afterwards. Every time we'd get the letters back in, and I would always know, because big envelope come back in, or big envelope go out, little bitty envelope come back in, which always means a no. And then we would go through months of depression. So from an early age, I had that love of writing. When I became a teenager, I started with poetry and stuff, and then moved on to short stories. When I actually got married, I actually gave up writing for a while. I was like, I will not put myself through this because it's just so up and down. And then when I got ready to actually have my baby and I was on maternity leave, it just came back. There was no pushing it away anymore. It had to come out, and it came out. And now I'm glad I did.
Oh, I think that brings up a good point about options that we have now. Like, for your father, it sounds like because there was not the self-publishing or the internet that we have now, there were no options but to send out and accept what came back.
Not to mention submitting cost a whole lot more than it does now.
But see, that was the choice. You could do that or you could not submit. And I think now we have so many more options. If you send out and it comes back, you can do other things. You can choose to publish it on your own. Peter Green has done that. You can choose to go with a different press, a small press, because the big presses aren't the only ones there. You can choose to try and do it just electronically. you have options now. There are so many more doorways open so that a failure, quote unquote, a rejection letter is not the end of your story. Yours or the book's.
Yeah.
I mean,
That was a punny.
I didn't
punny
intend
point.
that, sorry. But it's not the end. You can choose to do something else with it. You just have to get back up.
And after the last recession we had, depression we had, a lot of the big houses are gone or have been merged. So you get less presses out there. Yes, you've got a lot of new small presses, but the areas to get published in the traditional sense have shrunk.
Yeah, this is actually something I've been going through myself. The idea when I first started writing of being published by a big New York publisher was what everyone wanted. You know, it was the way to do it. And if you published by yourself on Amazon, then you were obviously not good enough to go to the big houses. And that was what I was kind of raised in my writing infancy, thinking.
Join the party.
Yeah. So, thankfully, I joined this wild and wacky world of writers at a very good time. I joined at a time we're currently in, which is change. You know, everything's changing. The priorities of people, of readers and publishers and libraries and bookstores are all changing. And the resources are all shifting away from big business into small business and individuals. And I'm going to credit Angie Fox. Angie Fox was here talking with us not long ago with opening my eyes up and changing the definition of that big New York publisher as opposed to that was success. And then lesser success, a black and white person might call a failure. So it's like if I took my novel to Amazon to publish it, then it meant I gave up on the other. But that's not really the case any longer. Now, you can yell at me if you want to, but I dare say that going to a big New York publisher is sort of siding with the dinosaurs. That there's going to be a time where that era goes extinct, and you can decide which horse you want to get on. The one that's a dinosaur or the one that's young and strong and that it's going to carry you past the death of the other one.
Or you can do both, which Angie Fox
can do both,
is doing.
Angie Fox
Yes.
done.
Exactly.
So,
Related to that specifically, I would like to be published with a big publisher. But one of the things that I knew going into trying to publish at all was they don't publish what I write and they don't publish what I read. So chances are that's not going to happen for me, and if it does, they're not going to put in the effort and publicity that I would need to make it the book that it needs to be.
They don't do so much of that anymore anyway.
Yeah,
Unless
that's
you're
true.
one of the top-notch Rawlings or whoever.
But I mean, like, a big publisher is not where people who read, gay romance or, erotic romance necessarily. That's not where the readership is going to find these stories. And those are two things that I write, and those are elements in a lot of the stories that I write, whether or not they're in that broad category. So, I don't know, recognizing that wasn't going to be success for me happened earlier, and I think I'm lucky for that. Like, recognizing that if I was sending to those houses, I would feel like a failure because
the
what they
failure
want.
was built in.
It was built in, yeah.
And it really is. I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to say, back in the day in which Lee's father was first trying to get published, I know for a fact that they really didn't want to look at an author too often unless they would publish in short stories. And then thus you had a different gatekeeper to get through. And that was even harder.
thank goodness we don't live in that era. I can't write anything short.
I can't either.
But then they don't publish many short stories
unsolicited.
anyway.
Exactly.
Sure
But
they do.
mine-
They're called ebooks.
Mine ties right in with what she was saying, because I had some big publishing companies want to look at my work. They requested full manuscripts, and then they come back. My books are too violent. They have too much sex. Can I change this or change that to fit in after them specifically saying, we're looking for something new? even one of them said they were looking for a romance that had a serial killer in it. I was like, I've got this. Mine has a serial killer. And then they came back and told me my serial killer was too violent.
Oh.
They wanted a gentle serial killer.
Okay, I described it too much.
I mean, killed with a kind word and a soft hand.
Are you sure that's not the romance option? The kind-hearted serial killer. Is this Dexter? It's Dexter. Dexter's Sebastian number 2.
So I was like, I did make the right choice going on my own, and I will not. It's one thing for a company to come back and say, okay, your grammar needs to change. Let's put some more detail here. Maybe soften this up. But do not take the core of my story away. I cannot compromise that.
Going with the self-publishing for a second, and failure and so forth. I could be completely wrong with my point of view on this aspect. And feel free to say, David, you're wrong. But back in the 40s, 50s, 60s was the age of pulp fiction. And that is where a lot of break-in writers were getting. That's where a lot of the big names eventually would come out of. I see the self-publishing world as the modern-day version of the pulp fiction. And it gives the opportunity. Maybe there will be a New York Times or New York big publisher or whatever goes, okay, I can't publish this, but I'd like to read more of Jennifer's work or Kathleen's work or Fedora's work, whatever. You know, that might bring up, because as Angie was saying, you have sales numbers you can actually show these people, hey, I've got already making this much. Second thing, like you, Jen, Angie opened my eyes a lot. And I sat back, and I thought, wait a minute, you are an idiot. You being me. I'm an idiot, not Angie. And because
how dare you have all this wisdom to share with us, Angie?
Because I went through school. This is jumping off of writers for a minute. I started being told in 3rd grade, drop out of school by teachers.
That's weird.
I had a learning disability, and they really didn't understand how to work around
Weird
it.
is not the unkind word I was thinking.
No, I if people could see, if this was video, I'd be flicking my middle finger at a lot of these teachers. But yet, I look back going, yeah, they became the fires I had to go through. Because I was told in middle school, drop out, don't even think about high school, nevertheless college. In high school, I was told that was also by a principal back then too. And in in high school, I was told by a principal and by various teachers to drop out. I have a master's degree. Okay, I didn't listen to you people back then. Why in this profession should I be listening to those who don't want to see? I'm not putting down the publishers when I say this. They have their business. They have their reasons that they exist. They have their focus. But why am I dictating my worth and my success and failure because I didn't meet their business model at the time of my submission? Kathleen and then Jen.
Oh, well, do you have something to talk about specifically about that?
I was going to steer it a place, so you go ahead.
All right. Well, I had a question for everybody. How has failure helped you as a writer? I mean, we've talked about it being important, but specifics, like what are some ways that failure has helped you become a better writer and has helped you in your writing?
If I try to publish my first novel, let me rephrase that. If I try to publish my second practice novel, my first one was wrote when I was in 7th grade. It sucked. Boy, does it suck.
It probably read just like a 7th grader wrote it.
Exactly. Yeah, that one had a whole bunch of bad humor in it. Like, it was a story about a knight who went on a quest, and his knight's name was Circumference. And if you know math, you know where I got the joke from.
Ow!
Exactly.
Oh.
Actually, this might have some potential.
That was a Get Out.
Yeah, yes.
That was Phantom Tollbooth.
Yeah, well,
One of
anyway.
my favorite books.
See, it has potential.
Yeah. But anyway, if I look back at my practice novels, they not only are bad, but I've learned from them. I've learned from each stumble what improve and does, and what my themes and what my stories are really about. I'm not sure who.
Oh, well, I'll just go real quick. I've been working on the same novel for 10 plus years now. that novel is actually probably 3 different novels because I rewrote it so many times. And every time I rewrote it, it was in response to someone giving me a rejection or a harsh critique or something like that. And when I realized that there was something wrong with it, I needed to rewrite it. And it's a better novel. Obviously, it's not good enough for New York to want it right now.
Or it doesn't fit in their business plan.
Or it doesn't fit in their business plan. It's not a good enough... good enough is not a good measure. That's not.
It's
real.
not the cookie cutter book.
It's not.
It's not the right fit.
It's not selling right now. So but the version that I have now is one that I would be willing to perhaps consider publishing myself. The version that I sent to the first agent that I ever sent it to, I would regret if that was the one that was on the shelf. So I learned a lot about writing just as a rule. I learned a lot about publishing. I learned a lot about character and pacing and how to accept critique and how to interpret feedback and all these things that I would not have learned if I hadn't made the mistake to start with. And it wasn't a mistake to send it in. Yeah, I would not have found out that it had those problems if I hadn't sent it to someone. They said, your protagonist is too old and is acting like a child. It's like, oh, well, I should probably make her younger then. Instead of going through and writing her older, make her younger. It's like, okay, that makes sense, because then she still has the same reactions. It turned into a better book. The character felt more alive and more real. And it hadn't even occurred to me before someone gives me that kind of feedback. So I would say that failure, quote-unquote failure, stumbling, we'll use stumbling, because it didn't fail. It was just hitting roadblocks that I had to then overcome.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'll give you a story about failure, which is sort of an intended failure. And this is really odd. And it bears out what Dave said about all of us being insane. I had a book under contract, okay? Mm-hmm. And I was working on a second book. And I worked on it, I reworked it, and I just couldn't send it anywhere. I just didn't know what was the matter with me. But I just kept doing it again and again. I guess it was this sophomore panic or something. I don't know what it was. But at any rate, I finally said, I have to send something somewhere or I'm going to go nuts. And so I wrote a really stupid story, which was about zombies. And you know that I hate zombies, and I hate zombie stories. And I sent it off, and I knew it would be too bad, because it's a terrible story, and I knew nobody would like it, and of course they didn't. But it got me over the stumbling block, so I could put that second book away, start on a new one, and submit some other things, and just actually get off of dead zero, which I seem to be sitting on.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the name of your zombie story?
It should have been. The story name was Zombie Road, because there's a zombie road in St. Louis.
I want to say that failure helped me as a writer because I think I can put that emotions that I feel into my characters to make my characters more real to people. I know in poetry, it's raw emotion that goes into that, and that's what draws the readers to the poetry side. Because no one wants to read poetry and feel nothing. Mm-hmm. Either they want happiness or sadness, and it's the same thing when it comes to writing your characters. They want to feel that roller coaster of emotion. So I think if we experience and we put all our regrets and our hardships and we push that into our characters, I think that makes our characters more believable. And that's a positive way to take all that negative emotion that we've gotten and turn it into something positive.
Do you want to add? I'm going to add something if you don't. Okay. I'm going to say also, too, I said earlier I really was still trying to figure out what it is I wanted to write. That's what came out of failure. Is back then I'm like, oh, I want to write this one, I'm going to call it the second practice novel. The first practice novel, that's a whole different story. Second practice novel, I know where I got influence from. And I know that I was trying to write this big epic story across all this malarkey I was writing back then. And now my themes are a lot more focused. I don't know why. Immigration is one, but immigration is a huge one. And so, maybe because I'm a grandson of immigrants completely on one side of the family. There wasn't one person who wasn't. So, I don't know why it is, but that's the case. So, Jen, you were going to go down another road?
Probably.
No.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
It's all good?
I don't remember.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry. I just looked at the time. We've got 5 more minutes for this broadcast.
Oh, fantastic. So I guess we should do final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
Let's see. Well, final thoughts on failure. I still like the phrase, you can't fly if you don't learn to fall first. You can't. You won't take off if you don't jump. And I always think about one of my favorite books in the entire world, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. In the final volume of
Which one do you consider the final volume?
Isn't it Mostly Harmless? Is the last
Okay.
one? I think he learns to fly in the 4th one. But the way you fly in Hitchhiker's Guide is you jump and then you forget to hit the ground.
No, you fall and you miss the ground.
So they're human beings that can fly. They can do impossible things because they refuse to hit the ground. And I like that image. I think of that often, actually. It's like I can either let the failure keep me on the floor, or I can just miss. I can just miss the ground and keep going.
Okay.
If anyone's ever seen, what's his face, Nolan, Batman.
Oh,
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan's Batman. You've heard.
You better do the impression.
Why do we fall, Bruce?
Why do we fall, Master Bruce?
So we can pick ourselves back up.
So we can learn to get back up again. And if that kid who lost his parents, who was totally a real kid, who had all that bad stuff happen, could learn to get back up again to the point where he became Batman, then I believe we can all get back up again from writing failures and be writers. We don't have to be Batman writers. That's his thing. But I mean, we can do our thing as long as we keep going, as long as we get back up, and as long as we keep hoping.
But I am Batman. No, sorry.
I don't have any good quote. I just want to say, as long as you are going, then you haven't failed.
You don't fail until you give up.
Well, I do have a good quote. And it is from the immortal Johnny Cash.
Oh.
He said, "You build on failure. You use it as a stepping stone. Close the door on the past. You don't try to forget the mistakes, but you don't dwell on it. You don't let it have any of your energy or any of your time or any of your space." And he ought to know. He spent time in prison. He had all kinds of problems, divorces, everything happened to him. But he kept right on going and making his deep bass rhythm music.
And it's now considered to be one of the greats. Okay. And I'm going to say, I've already said the quote that keeps me going, don't worry if you work hard and rewards are few. Remember the mighty oak was once a nut like you. But there's one other thing I do, and this has been recently, because the event didn't occur until 2012. Sometimes I jump out on YouTube and I re-look up Neil Gaiman, the 2012 commencement speech. Yeah, I also picture somebody in a clipboard knocking on my door going, "Yeah, you gotta go. You gotta quit writing. This is the end."
It's the fraud police.
Yes.
The fraud police.
Yes, the fraud police. Watch it, listen to it. Keep writing. If you're a painter, keep painting. Keep sculpting. I don't care what art you do. Go out there, and to quote Neil Gaiman, make good art. And on that, we will catch you next week. Have a great week writing. The new theme songs for Right Pack Radio were written and performed by Meredith Tate. All copyrights remain with her. Right Pack Radio would like to thank STL Books for allowing us to record in their office. STL Books is a online bookstore specializing in new and used high-quality literature, children's books, and books written by or about St. Louis. Please visit them online at www.stlbooks.com or find their store on the Amazon.com website.